Hey everyone, and welcome to Sasquatch Theory, a channel where people can share their Bigfoot encounters and experiences. In this episode, we have a guest who had a terrifying Sasquatch encounter when he was just a little kid. Can you imagine being a little kid and seeing something like that? You basically had to go through life knowing that older people are wrong. I'm assuming it would have been hard to take any science, history, or religion classes too seriously. Of course, everything has its own measurement of truth depending on what topic you dive into. This sighting took place about 2 hours away from Portland, Oregon. I want to give everyone a quick update on what's going on with the channel. The videos and posts have been a little slow lately due to my internet connection, but I did order Skylink internet, so hopefully that will resolve most of my issues. It's just myself running the channel, and between emails, videos, interviews, and field research, it's been really tough. Believe me, there are people out there who mock and ridicule the work I do and, well, say it's not real work. All I can really say to that is Rome was not built in a day. The drone classes are tough, and understanding how to be a real photographer and videographer is not a simple task. But guys, it's all coming together, and I believe the channel will go places in the future, and I hope it does. I really do. It feels good standing up to the face of evil and people who say we are wrong. Share your Bigfoot encounter with the world at SasquatchTheory@outlook.com. Alright everyone, let's dive straight into this next Bigfoot encounter from the state of Oregon. Hey Alex, and welcome to Sasquatch Theory. It's a pleasure to finally have you on the show, man. How are you doing?
Very good, thank you. You?
Not too bad, just enjoying the summer weather. Alex, if you would, just run me through your encounters and experiences and everything that happened.
Okay. My name is Alex. I am a retired pastor with the Salvation Army. I was with them for quite a few years, about 10 years. And 10 years as an employee and 5 years as a volunteer, so a total of 15 years. And Bigfoot came into my life when I was 7 years old on July 5th, 1978. I happened to see a Bigfoot outside my window. I was at my grandparents' house in the Hood River. We had celebrated July 4th, and it was the next night after that. We'd been out berry picking and stuff like that, and my grandma had made desserts and things like that, and food and stuff like we normally did. And I went to bed about 9 o'clock, and am I going too fast?
No, you're doing fine. Okay. And right. Just explain every situation as it unfolded, like what you guys were doing and kind of what happened.
Well, normally we went to bed about 8 or 9. I went to bed about 9. My grandma didn't really let me stay up any later than that. And so I was asleep, woke up, and again, we had a grandfather clock that sat on the wall in my bedroom, and it showed the time was 1:30 a.m. And I got up because I had to use the bathroom. I went in, did my business. I came back into the room, and above there was 2 windows in my bedroom. One was facing the right side, and the one was facing on the left side. The left side is the one where I saw the Bigfoot and where everything happened. There was a floodlight a few feet above the window itself, and the floodlight it had a sensor on it, so that when my grandpa, he would get up really early in the morning, and it would be dark outside, he would have to instead of fumbling for his keys in the dark trying to unlock his vehicle, he put in that floodlight with the sensor so that when he walked outside, he could trigger the sensor, and then it would light up around his vehicle as long as he was moving. And then he could get in his little truck and he could go on down the road. He worked at the sawmill up there in Hood River. I don't remember if it was in Hood River itself or if it was in Odell, but I know it was in that general area. And my grandpa was a farmer and worked at the sawmill. It's pretty much what he did. So I was walking back into the bedroom, and I was going to lay down in my bed. Before I even got that far, the light flashed on over the window, and outside, it was all outside. And I thought that my grandpa was getting ready to get up and go to work. And I thought it was kind of early, but I thought, well, maybe somebody called in sick or maybe something happened at the mill and he had to go out early. So I was going to go over there and wave at him. So I walked toward the window and I looked out the window, and our windows were about 6 feet off the ground. And I looked out the window and I saw, well, I'll just say it. It was something right out of a nightmare. I'd always heard that Bigfoot was a joke, that it was a legend, that it didn't really exist, that it was people misidentifying bears, or that, it was just something that parents used to scare their children, to make it so like the kids don't wander off or something. And I put no credence in Bigfoot whatsoever. And to me, Bigfoot was the same as elves, fairies, dragons, and all of that. And I had absolutely zero interest in Bigfoot at all. Wasn't looking for it, wasn't trying to find it, nothing. So anyway, I'm approaching the window and I stop because I see it. And this son of a gun is 8 feet tall. I kid you not. And it is massive. And I do mean massive. Its shoulders were probably at least 4 feet wide. It had really long arms, like its arms hung down below its knees when it stood upright, and its arms were at its sides. The fingertips were below the knees, and this thing had massive muscles on it. I mean, its arms and legs were like the size of a large trash can. That's how massive this thing was. And it had no neck whatsoever. It looked like its head was sat directly on its shoulders. And the weird thing about the one I saw is it was clearly albino. It had pink skin on itself. You could see the skin in the light, and it was a really odd pinkish color. And its eyes, when I looked at its eyes, it had brought its hand up over its eyes, its hand, not its paw. Okay, for all those skeptics out there, it was not a bear. Okay, I've hunted bears, I've seen bears, I know every type of bear you can show me. That was no bear. And I just want to put that out there. I saw what I saw, and it took its hand down, and I saw its eyes, and its eyes were like those albino rabbits, like those weird reddish pink eyes. That's the color its eyes were. They were small, round, and set very close together. And it had hair, all white hair on its body. It had no color in the hair whatsoever other than white. And it had a really weird smell, like wet dog and sulfur. And it kind of made my nose, like, I was like, ugh, and I mean, I was thinking that, but I couldn't move. I'm not sure why exactly, but I was completely frozen. I couldn't do anything except watch this thing approach the window, bend down, look in the window, put its hands on the sides of its face, like it's looking in the window to kind of cover its eyes from the light so it could see inside. There was no light on in the room, but the floodlight reflected off some of the stuff. There were some trees and whatnot, and it reflected based on the angle that it was set at. it kind of reflected a little bit back in the room. So I believed that it could see me. And that's why it could see me and knew I was in there, because of the light reflecting back in the room. And it's like, I didn't expect to see anything like that. Not even close. Its hands were like shovels. I mean, its hands were frigging massive and muscular. I've told people this in the past, and I'll just say it again. It looked like it could rip the house right off the foundation and throw it away and not even break a sweat. That's how strong this thing was. And I don't know, man. It's just, it's really a trip talking about it, because it's like I'm right back there again. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand.
And it's just, I don't know. It's just, even talking about it, man, it's like I'm right back there again. I'm seeing it, smelling it, hearing it, and it's just very disconcerting. Because it's like every childhood thing that you'd learned was trash. Because, I was always confident that things like that didn't exist. There were no monsters, there were no dinosaurs, still living or anything like that. But when you see a friggin' Bigfoot, what do you think? I mean, maybe there's other stuff out there too. I don't know. But anyway, it was staring at me in the window, and I don't know. It just, I don't know. It's really weird. The whole thing was surreal. I mean, it was almost like everything slowed down. My grandma thought that maybe it was because my adrenaline was in overdrive. She said that sometimes when people have an adrenaline rush, time is flowing normally, but they perceive it differently. And she thought maybe that's what happened to me, because to me it seemed a lot longer than it was, when really I would guess it was probably about 40, 50 seconds tops. But it seemed like forever that I'm sitting there looking at this thing, looking in my window, staring at me. It never opened its mouth. It never showed any teeth. It didn't do anything aggressive. But I was just so terrified of seeing that I just stopped. And eventually I kind of let out a like that, and that's all I could get out. And it looked surprised, the Bigfoot. Its eyes kind of opened up a little bit, and it kind of stepped back, and it looked like it was really surprised that I did that. And then it kind of turned around and started walking away, and it let out this really, really weird screech, which I sent you a copy of. One that is not exactly like it, but it was really close in my memory. And that's pretty much what I heard. And it walked away. And when I yelled, eventually my grandpa came in, and he was like, What happened? What happened? I couldn't even say anything. I was like dumbfounded. And it took me a long time to calm down and finally be able to tell him what I saw. And when I told him, his exact words, and I'll never forget this as long as I live, he said, "The damned apes are back." He didn't say the damned elk, the damned bear, the damned, sheep, the damned goats, the damned cows, whatever. He didn't say any of that. He said the damned apes are back. And he wouldn't talk about it after that. He just turned real white, like he was terrified, and he wouldn't speak on it. Now, later on, my grandmother shared with me that he used to be a lumberjack, and they used to go logging out in different places. And they went to one that was near Mount Hood National Forest, which, as the crow flies, is not far from Hood River, probably about 40 or so miles. And anyway, this was like back in the 30s when he saw one. But I guess the Bigfoots would come into their camp at night, and they'd throw stuff at the tents. They'd screech and howl and carry on. And, during the night, they'd grab a hold of the axes that the guys used and drive them into trees to where they couldn't get them out again. And, they would like break all their equipment and stuff like that, my grandma said. And she said that's where he saw it. And she said that's why he was so afraid, because she said he didn't ever want to see one again. But anyway, it was really bizarre. But the next day we went out and we looked at the tracks. The tracks were about 22 inches long. They were about 7.5 inches long. Not long, I mean wide. And the stride was about 5 feet in between each track. And its tracks went deep into the ground. And now my grandpa was 6 foot, about 250, and his barely even scratched the surface. So whatever it was a hell of a lot. However much it weighed, whatever this Bigfoot weighed, it weighed a hell of a lot more than my grandpa. And so, it was just bizarre. And I didn't ever see it again. I didn't hear any reports of neighbors seeing it. I think maybe after its experience with me, it just left. I will say that we had blackberry briars, which were real close to our property, and across the way we had a apple orchard, and it could very well have been messing with that or looking for food there as a food source. In the area was also a lot of things like deer and stuff like that. And we also had an irrigation ditch where it could have potentially gotten water. My grandpa had a pond which he built on his property, which had fish in it. It could have been back there messing with that. I don't know. I just know that it was just really weird. It was just really weird. And that's what comes to mind about that right now.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you sharing all that with me. And do you have more to add, or are you ready for some questions?
I'm ready for questions, please.
All right. Why do you think the Sasquatch was looking at you through the window?
I think it was curious. I've read in books that albinos tend to be picked on and kicked out of their families or in animal groups. Like if an albino was born in like a lion's pride or a wolf pack or whatever, they'll usually drive it off or kill it, and they won't accept it. And so I kind of think, and this is just my personal thought, it might have been just looking for something to interact with. I don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it kind of makes me think that they're traveling and looking for resources, because the first time we talked, I kind of mentioned that maybe it was looking at you consistently through the window every night, and you said that there was that floodlight, and it seemed shocked because that was the first time it had that light turned on, and it seemed pretty surprised anyways.
Yeah, I don't think it had been watching me, because if it were, it would have known that floodlight comes on when people come out.
Yeah,
so
yeah, and that's
I would have to say that was probably just passing through to wherever it was going.
Yeah, absolutely, because if he was a local in that area and let's say lived on your property or on that property, he would know that floodlight was there.
Right.
I hear a lot of people report seeing red eyes. Do you think the red eyes are Bigfoot, and do you think they're albino Bigfoot specifically?
No, I don't. I think that's a whole different thing. Amakuk is what we call them in Yupik. My grandma on my father's side is Yupik, Alaska Native. The elders say that the beings with red eyes are a totally different thing. They say that they're evil spirits called Amakuk. They're shapeshifters, and they can look like Bigfoots. They can look like wolves. They can look like a cross between whatever. They can look however they want to look. But the difference between Amakuk and hairy man or Bigfoot is that Amakuk are like evil spirits, kind of, and they're not the same as Bigfoot. They're not. No matter what they look like, they're not Bigfoot. They don't reproduce. They don't, eat. They don't do things that normal creatures do. and they're very similar to what the Navajo legends are about what they say about the skinwalkers. That's the same thing, basically, that the Amakuk are to us. I think that's something totally different. Now, the one I saw did have reddish pink eyes, but they didn't glow or anything like that. Whatever I saw was a living biological creature. It wasn't a spirit. It left tracks. It left, different evidences that it was there. It's not uncommon for people who see shapeshifters to see tracks, but they're inconsistent and weird, and they disappear part way.
Yeah.
Based on what I've been told and what the elders told us and told my grandma growing up.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so did it have a conical shaped head, or was it round?
No, it had a conical shaped head, and it had a domed head, kind of like a mountain.
Okay. How far up did the skull go above the brow ridge, would you estimate?
That's a really good question. Never been asked that before. Let me think about that. It looked like the dome was like near the top of the skull toward the back.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure how many inches that would be, because I'm not very good at that kind of thing, to be truthful.
Was it oddly shaped compared to a human's dimensions?
The head or the skull, or the crest, or whatever you call that thing, the dome head?
Yeah, just the dome. Anything above the eyebrows and all the way up. I mean, was it like a foot, would you say, or was it?
I wouldn't say a foot. I'd say it was inches, but I would say, just guessing, it's probably 7 or 8, maybe 9 inches. And that's purely a guess, because I'll be honest, I'm really bad at that kind of stuff. Anything to do with math, I'm really not good at.
Yeah, I understand.
You're talking to the guy who when he was in high school, had a math class with people who drooled on themselves and hit themselves and stuff like that. That's how bad at math I am.
No, you're fine. Okay, so moving on to the scream that you heard.
Mm-hmm.
Or should I say blood-curdling scream.
Mm-hmm.
I heard it, and it sounded strange. The video that you shared with me. I don't know how to describe it, but it sounded like someone screaming through a megaphone.
Mm-hmm. That's really funny you say that, because it's like when it screeched, I could feel it in my body. You know what I mean? The resonance from it. I could feel it, and it like absolutely terrified me. Absolutely terrified me, that screech. And I've never heard a screech like that. Not on any of the Bigfoot programs or all of that. Usually when I watch these quote unquote Bigfoot programs, you hear the same type of thing. You'll hear like, oh, or something like that, or you'll hear like something that sounds like somebody screaming at the top of their lungs or something. But if you know the sound that I heard, because I gave you the video so you could hear it for yourself, and that's pretty close to what I heard. It's very bizarre, really bizarre. And I was watching more about that video. They had an old episode about it on a show called Sightings, which was on back in the 90s, 80s, 90s, something like that. I can't remember. And they had a story about Sergeant Ken Cooper and his experience with that. And it freaked me out, because I'm like, that's what I heard. You know, not exact, I mean, but pretty close. I mean, that's pretty much the sound it made. And he was talking about it, and he said they sent it in to have it analyzed. And they said that it wasn't a machine, it wasn't mechanical, that it wasn't a human, it wasn't any type of known animal. And it basically it had like a 5-octave range, but like in each note there was 5 octaves of when it screeched. And it said that they don't know of anything in the animal kingdom or humans that can do that. Now, there are animals who can make like up echoes and stuff, like whales. They said that whales can make a 5-octave noise, but not like 5 octaves all at once. They can do like octave 1, octave 2, 3, 4, and up to 5 and beyond, but they can't do it all at once. Whatever made that sound is completely distinct from any known animal or creature. And the lung power on that thing was very similar to, what I heard. And until I heard that sound, I'd never heard anything that sounded like that. I had heard like the Sierra recordings, but I didn't know anything about that to be able to say if that was Bigfoot or not. To me, it sounded like somebody, or doing some weird stuff. But the one I heard did not sound at all like that. So.
Yeah, it's a strange sound, and it'll definitely stay with you for a long time.
Yes, sir.
The floodlights that you guys used around the house, did they operate off of IR?
I just know that if you walked in front of it, it turned on, and it would shut off if you stopped moving.
Yeah. Well, it seems like he didn't notice it or pick up on it, or maybe he was so distracted with what was going on inside the house that he didn't notice it.
Maybe. And I'm sorry if I'm nervous. I'm a little nervous. Forgive me.
No, you're fine. When he brought his hand up to his face to block out the floodlight, did you get a chance to see the eyes?
When he took his hand away, yes.
Okay.
You mentioned you saw the red eyes. What are some details you can tell us about that?
Well, I was going to say, I talked to Peter Byrne about that, and he said that based on my description of the eyes, he said that he found my sighting. He said he would have classified it as a Class A sighting simply for that description alone. Because he said, talking to you, I can tell you're not a scholar. And he said, I'm not saying that to be rude. He said that, you strike to me as someone who's, has maybe some basic education, but nothing beyond that. And he said that you probably didn't even know that in albinos, it's very common for them to have eyes that are really small and round and set close together. And he said that he found that he said that he believed my story simply because of that. He said even if he didn't believe anything about it otherwise, he said he would have believed that one detail, because he said that's not something that someone who is poorly educated like I was, and he wasn't being rude. I really am. I mean, I barely graduated high school. You know what I mean? I was really fortunate to do so. I'm not a scholar, don't claim to be, none of that. But he had indicated to me that he believed that simply because of that detail. That and the eyes being like albino rabbit eyes. And those eyes are pink whether they're lighted or not. You know what I mean? They're the same color. I mean, they may look differently if you have like night vision or something, I guess, because you wouldn't be able to see the color, but they stay the same color. It's not like you look out there and its eyes are like glowing red with no light source or whatever reflecting in it. So
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned earlier that it could be possible, due to it being albino, that it was kicked out of the group.
right.
What do you think the Bigfoot are, and where do you think they came from?
I think it varies. I really do. The reason I say that is because the one I saw looked more human than ape. The face was very human-like. It did its mouth. Like in apes, how their mouths stick out.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Its face was flat, and it had like no hair on its face, on the front of its face. It had like a beard and stuff on the side and underneath its chin, but the face itself the cheeks and all of that were hairless. And it just really weird, really weird.
Yeah. And witnessing something like that at such a young age, how did it affect you growing up and perceiving the world?
Well, I thought that everything I'd ever been taught in school was BS, because if science couldn't even identify something like that, then, I figured that there were probably a lot of other things they didn't know about too. What I think Bigfoot is I think it's some type of evolutionary thing. I think that it's not a human, not an ape, but like a near human ancestor. But I think some of them, and again, this harks back to the native side of my family. They have legends that these hairy people would kidnap like young women and impregnate them, and they'd have babies. And I don't know about you, but like if a human, mates with an animal, you don't get like a horse human or an ape human or whatever. You don't get that. You know what I mean? But somehow something in the Bigfoot's DNA allows them to do that. And I believe it because, a lot of the stories that we have passed down to us are things that were observed by different people in native culture for many, many generations. And so, that's the type of thing that we know that people outside of that don't know or won't know because they refuse to see it. And I know I've been badgered a lot by skeptics. And the funny thing is, Bigfoot could prove evolution if they found it and they determined it was like an ape-human hybrid or something. That could prove evolution right there. You know what I mean? But the people who consistently give me the most grief are atheists, not Christians or religious people. I talked to a Muslim one time about it, and he said he thought it was a jinn, which is like their version of like an evil spirit. That's what he thought it was. Christians seem to think they're Nephilim, the giants that were in the earth that were the offspring of humans and angels. Now, I don't believe that, because if you believe the Bible, it said that everything that was living that moved on the ground perished in Noah's flood. So whatever that was, it couldn't be Nephilim. And, I've had people say, well, what about the giant David fought, Goliath? Again, that's a recessive human trait that was somewhere in their DNA. And that gigantism, it's been, we've had people who've had that problem, and stuff like that in different generations where they're extremely tall. Now, if they marry, have children, they pass that gene on. So I don't believe there's some type of angel-human hybrid or, that there's some type of spiritual beings or any of that. I believe that when people contact something and it's spiritual, that's an Amakuk. It's not a Ur-Yuli or hairy man. That's a totally different thing. And that's just my personal opinion. I know a lot of people out there don't believe that or agree with that, but that's just how I look at it.
Yeah, that's fair enough. What part of Oregon did your sighting happen in?
Hood River, Oregon. It's about 2 hours southeast of Portland, Oregon.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to give people a general idea, because I know they're curious, and a lot of people out there are looking for stuff like that.
Well, again, I saw that in 1978, so I don't think you could go back to where I was and find it. So now I guess there's still sightings there or something. The last I heard about was like many, many years ago. It was in the Hood River Gazette, their newspaper, and it was about two kids saw one messing around down in a creek, and they got scared and ran away. And but that wasn't the one I saw. It didn't even. They said it was tall and black and dark skinned and hairy and all of that, and they ran away. So, but as far as today, I have no idea if there's any of that stuff even left. I don't know how big Hood River is or what's going on. I haven't even been there since like the late 80s.
Do you think there's some type of spiritual connection between your sighting and your ancestors? I don't know if you've ever thought about that.
Some people do believe that the Bigfoots are spiritual. I don't. And that's just me personally. That's not to say that other people aren't, valid in their belief that it is. What I saw left tracks. It left different things which let you know it actually was there. My thought would be if it was some type of spiritual thing, it wouldn't have done all that. And that's just my belief. I believe, like I said, that it's some type of evolutionary throwback to modern man or something. I don't know.
Yeah. When your grandpa said the damn apes are back, it made me think that they had been watching him or following him, and then you mentioned his experience that he had before.
Right, but that was like back in the 30s, so
yeah.
And the ones that they saw up there at Mount Hood were, he said that they had, my grandma said that they had chestnut-colored hair, according to what he had told her years ago. And again, I never heard it from him directly because he wouldn't talk about it. If I asked him, he'd just turn white and tell me there's some things best left unsaid, boy. And I knew if my grandpa said that, if he called me boy, I didn't push him. You know what I mean? Because if I pushed him, I may get turned over the knee and get the old-fashioned justice. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's understandable.
So, but my grandma said that they were chestnut-colored and that they were different sizes. Some were large, some were medium, some were small. She said that it really just varied, but she believed that there was a tribe of them up there. And what they did up there, I don't know. I don't know what they are. I don't know where they go. I don't know what they do. I just know I saw one then, and I can only tell you what I saw.
Okay. All right, Alex. Well, I think that answers most of my questions, and you did a great job of relaying your encounter and sharing all that information.
Okay.
All right, well, I'm going to let you go for now, and yeah, I appreciate it, man.
All right, thank you, sir. You have a good one, Miguel. All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
Alex, I appreciate you sharing everything with me on the channel, and I believe you, man. These things are out there, and they come in all different shapes and sizes. So the fact that you saw an albino Sasquatch does not surprise me. A lot of people report a gray Sasquatch, but I think even that is different than an albino. I witnessed a jet black Sasquatch walk off in the woods, and he had some white on him as well. It wasn't much, but it reminded me of a skunk in a way. I saw the real skunk ape here in Missouri. People have reported Sasquatch breaking into nuclear bases, which seems highly unlikely, seriously. But if true, maybe the Sasquatch are investigating the bases because their water sources are contaminated with nuclear waste. Nuclear bases require some type of water source nearby to cool down the reactors, especially in the case of a nuclear meltdown. Something has to be done with all that water over time, and maybe there is something deeper going on than we may ever know. Anyways, I am rambling and theorizing on all kinds of reasons, but we will probably most likely never know the truth. But we can say we tried and we gave it hell, and that is all that matters. If you like this channel and want it to continue, please like and subscribe. If you have had a Bigfoot encounter, feel free to contact me at SasquatchTheory@outlook.com. Alright everyone, take care and be safe. Till the next one.